All right, guys, we are here. Is the mic work? Mic check, 1 2. Mic check. I'm having a mic problem. Don't know why. Mic check, 1 2. Mic check. Mic check, 1 2. Mic. Hang on a second. Don't know why that's doing that. All right, we're good to go. We're up. Mic's working. Hopefully, everything's good to go. Welcome in On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond, as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always makes my day to see some of you guys. See you guys being active in the chat before I even got up on the air, and that always makes my day. Got a buddy in the studio tonight. I say it's a studio. It's really, in reality, a bedroom, but I call it a studio. Patrick Mummert, he's in the house tonight, and he'll be helping me do some things on the side for school. But we're going to welcome you in right now. And first off, if you're new here, go ahead and do me a favor. Like this video. I see 10 of you guys are watching. I only got 1 like. That's a shame. Drop that like and do me a favor there. But, of course, if you're new, subscribe to this channel. That is the best thing you can do to stay up to date with everything going on with the Atlanta Braves. And that really would help me out as well. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. But before we do, I got to pay the bills. I got to get through what I need to get through. And to do that, I got to talk about Llerandi Gloves. And I got some good things to say about these people right now. So first off, this glove, you guys already know if you're a regular watcher. You guys already know how much I love this glove. It's high quality. It's tough leather. It's comfortable. It's not broken in yet, but I'm going to get it broken in. I'm going to start playing with it pretty soon. I can't wait to go play church league softball with this thing. I promise I'm going to be a stud out there. But aside from that, I saw something today, and I believe it was Wilson, and they had customizable gloves that you could pick. One of them was $359. One of them was $399 and north of it. So what I would tell you is go check these guys out. We're talking $215. Whatever your price range is, they got it. Go check them out. The link is in the description as always. But aside from that, I promise Llerandi Gloves is the best place for you to go. So let's talk about something going on with the Atlanta Braves, right? Let's talk about the actual Atlanta Braves. And something that's been very prevalent in the Atlanta Braves community is this conversation about center field. It's been prevalent since spring training started because we all sort of knew that Christian Pache was going to be battling for an opening day spot. We didn't know how easy or not easy it was going to be, but we all knew at some point we were going to see a battle for the center field spot. So with that, we got to talk about some of the stats right now, right? And should he start opening day? First off, Christian Pache right now isn't doing great in spring training. 0.87 batting average. And that sounds horrible. But keep in mind, he's only had 23 at-bats. It's a very small sample size. And I know you guys are going to get so tired of me saying super small sample size. But in reality, it is. Also, I think Pache is going to have to develop at the major league level before we ever really know where his bat is going to land, right? Defensively, we all know where he's at. He's been, by all accounts, the #1 prospect at his position in terms of fielding. And do I think he should start over Ender? Ender isn't doing a whole lot better. Keep that in mind. 188 batting average compared to Pache's 0.87. And he's also had a lot less at-bats, enough to even them out if he were to strike out continuously. But you're probably wondering why we shouldn't just leave Ender in that spot until Pache does good enough to warrant being brought up, right? Why don't I think that? Ender is more proven, technically, but here's why I think you should bring Pache up over Ender. In 2020, Ender had a 190 batting average and 116 at-bats. And yes, he's more proven, but he's more proven to get a sub-200 batting average than he is to do anything else. So it would be easy for me to say then that why not try someone else? But that's not the only thing. It's not just let's try someone else. I'm not just throwing someone in the fire here. I'm not wildly saying bring this guy up and trade Ender or get rid of Ender, release Ender. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not my MO here. Pache will bat 8th, more than likely. Unless Alex Jackson is in, then he might be higher up in the lineup. But we'll see. Pache is not meant to carry this offense. Look around the offense. Darno, Ozuna, Swanson, Acuna, Albies. Not to mention the former MVP Freddie Freeman now. There's a ton of guys that can carry it. I think Austin Riley is a guy that can fill that role. Pache is not meant to do that this year. He may down the road. But I say leave that to Marcell Ozuna. Leave that to Freddie Freeman. Leave that to the guys that carry the offense last year. Don't worry about this prospect because let's be honest here, Ender was not carrying the offense last year. I think that you're also going to have to re-sign some contracts next year, right? One of those being Ender, if you wish to keep him, which I doubt that happens. I and I also doubt that the Braves want to go into next year with an unexperienced center fielder coming straight out of the minors in Christian Pache. I think we all know that he's going to have major league time at some point this year. I just think giving him that opening day spot, giving him that vote of confidence would do more for his attitude than anything else and more for his confidence than anything else. I also really don't see them picking up Ender's contract next year. And the only reason I think he's going to have a chance at playing on the bench now is because they're paying him $8 million. He's not impressive at the plate. His defense has taken a bit of a drop. It's not terrible by any stretch, but it's not Gold Glove level. And, $8 million, frankly, could have done a lot of good for the Braves this year. We all know about the, sketchy bullpen, sketchy bench, right? It could have done a lot of good for them and being more confident in their depth right now. More on that later. By the way, the depth being the biggest concern, Alex Anthopoulos confirmed that earlier this week. So according to the man himself, that's what the biggest concern. I think we all know Christian Pache is the future. The debate seems to be when to use him, whether it be opening day, middle of the season, postseason. Let me just say, in my opinion, I would rather take a struggling Pache early in 2021 as opposed to 2022 because, frankly, let him try now. Let him get all the kinks out. And he pretty much did last year in the postseason. I mean, he hit a homer in the postseason last year. So I think he's got a lot more upside to him than Ender does, and I think that's fairly obvious. But try him now while we do have that veteran backup in Ender because, make no mistake, it is his spot to lose at this point. I just question whether or not we have Ender next year. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think why not give Pache that opportunity now? Let him get the kinks out. Let him get his confidence up. So that's what I think about the Christian Pache thing. That's kind of my final verdict. I know I've talked about it a lot, but I wanted to rehash that tonight and let you guys know what I'm thinking about it because no matter how much I talk about it, I still see those conversations out there. And, it's a fun thing, right? Spring training. You're supposed to have, conversations like that. But we'll see. Hey, guys, do me a favor. The comment section is looking a little low right now. So make sure you get in there and tune in there. But we are going to move forward, and we got to talk about the bench depth. I just mentioned Alex Anthopoulos saying that the depth is the biggest concern. And that's true. I think we've all known that for a while now. I've talked about it plenty. I did a video, I guess, about a week ago talking about the bench depth and how fluid that was going to be. But he stated that internally the bench and, well, the depth in general is the biggest concern. But I think that, there are a few guys in spring training that make you go, make you raise your eyebrows a little bit, turn your eye to them a little bit. I talked about Sean Kazmar being one of those guys the other day. And, just one of those guys that's really hard to cut, right? Because he's just proving himself left and right. And we're going to talk about another guy tonight in just a second, but that's what spring training is all about. A lot of people just assume spring training is a go through the motions type of thing. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It might not matter for guys like Ronald Acuna, guys like Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Darno, the established guys, right? Marcell Ozuna. I talked about the other day. Marcell Ozuna's struggling a lot in spring training. And I was like, well, I'm not even worried about Marcell Ozuna because spring training is not about Marcell Ozuna. It's about guys like Sean Kazmar. And it's also about another guy, Ari Adrianza. And I have had to learn that name. It is a very difficult name to learn for me. But let's get a proper introduction, shall we? Last year on the Twins, he had a sub-2 batting average, okay? Obviously not great. He had no homers last year in 89 at-bats. And the reason I mention it, it doesn't really matter to me, but he did already have one in spring training and only 23 at-bats versus that 89. So that's not what's making him known right now. To tell you the truth, it's the 478 batting average he has so far in spring. That's 11 for 23, and that's better than a lot of guys going for the bench role right now. And the only one that has relatively the same amount of at-bats and has a higher average is Sean Kazmar, the guy we talked about the other day. So he does have 9 less at-bats than Adrianza, but Adrianza has a better batting average than, get this, Pablo Sandoval, Michael Harris, who you've heard a lot about, Jason Kipnis, Philip Irvin, William Contreras, Guillermo Heredia, Johan Camargo, Travis Demeritte, Ender Inciarte, Alberto Almani. Those are all the guys that I could find that are really going for this bench spot. Okay, I didn't include any of the starting guys. So with that, they all have a lot of different situations. They all have different, more or less, at bats. So it's, take it with a grain of salt, but it's also nothing to sneeze at. The guy has proven himself. And again, it makes it hard to cut him. It puts Brian Snitker, Alex Anthopoulos in a tough predicament when they're deciding who to cut, who to give a shot to. And this guy just might be a diamond in the rough. And we've seen guys that they've given every chance to. Jake Lamb is a perfect example, just given every chance to for that bench spot, because he's a former All-Star. This is a guy that I think has every chance at being a guy on the bench. But I think he's a guy that we sort of overlook because name value alone doesn't put him there. Pablo Sandoval, World Series hero, right? Michael Harris, an upcoming prospect. Jason Kipnis, World Series hero. William Contreras, upcoming catcher. Johan Camargo, Ender Inciarte, guys we're familiar with. We just seem to forget about certain guys. And this is one of the guys I wanted to draw a little bit of attention to. Remember the name, Adrianza. He is doing very well in spring training. Pay attention. I talked about Sean Kazmar the other day. Every time I turn around, he's got an RBI and it's popping up on my phone, right? I knew that name specifically because of that. Adrianza is another one of those type guys. I'm not saying they're going to make it. I don't know, but I'm saying don't count him out. Again, it really makes it hard to cut him when he has a 478 batting average and a high amount of at-bats for spring training. So that's what I think about that. So with that, we're going to get into some of you guys' comments later on, so make sure you get those in. The only way I can guarantee me to be able to respond to it is Super Chats. I got a lot of stuff to get through tonight. Didn't have a show last Thursday, so I apologize for that. But we got a lot of stuff to get through tonight. So if you want me to answer a question or anything, Super Chats are the way to go, and they're just the easiest thing for me to be able to navigate. So with that, let's move forward. Let's talk about the Braves pitching. They're looking really good. I've seen some conversation in the chat tonight about Kyle Wright, about Bryce Wilson. I think right now the competition for the starting rotation specifically is looking really good. We all knew that the rotation was going to look better by default when the Braves added Charlie Morton and Drew Smyly. We all knew that was going to happen. To go along with Fried and Anderson, not to mention, plus eventually a returning Soroka. So we all, may have been surprised. Well, it surprised me. It's just how good the other guys have been, specifically Bryce Wilson. I think we all expected Kyle Wright to take that 5-hole while Soroka was out, if he's going to be out, which it's looking like he is for a while. But I think Bryce Wilson deserves another look. I think he's the favorite at the moment. I mean, I'm just going to say it. In his last outing, he allowed 1 run in his 4 2/3 innings. And, I know that's just one game, but he's 2-0 in spring training. He has a sub-2 ERA. And as opposed to Kyle Wright, I'm not picking on him here. He hasn't done bad necessarily, especially based on what we know about Kyle Wright. But a 4.09 ERA compared to a 1.98 is a lot different. And it's hard to tell long-term who's going to come out, the better player, the better pitcher. But what I will say is there are different opportunities for different players at different times. Bryce Wilson has made it a point to make the most out of his opportunity this year in spring training. So I think that has to be rewarded to some degree. Not only do I think Bryce Wilson could be successful in that role while Soroka is out, I still think he's going to be a fundamental long reliever this year. A fill-in starter, maybe, especially if somebody was to get hurt. Maybe if Smyly doesn't amount to what he should become, because that seems to be a worry right now, not on my end, but on Braves media end, that seems to be a bit of a worry. But not only do I think Bryce Wilson will be successful in the long reliever role, I think he could develop into a starter, have a similar rise like Max Fried did a few years ago, coming out of the bullpen. I remember Max Fried coming out of the bullpen to save Foltynewicz in Game 5 against Cardinals a couple years ago, and then he's never really looked back since. So I think you're going to see guys like Kyle Wright, guys like Bryce Wilson eventually move into starter roles, especially considering Charlie Morton's on a 1-year deal. And you have some other guys on 1-year deals too. I think they're building for the future, and those guys are the future, make no mistake. With that, there has been some conversation about Bryce Wilson's trade value and rumors about his trade value. I've been hearing them here lately. I've heard them. That's all you really need to know. They're out there. I know they're out there. So before you hit the comment section, I know they're out there. We're going to talk about it. I don't think that's what the Braves want to do. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, because depth is a big thing missing right now. And if you can get back, a substantial package for that guy, maybe. But honestly, I'm all for trading someone when they're hot. I partly wish that we traded Ender Inciarte a few years ago while he was still a Gold Glover and hitting 200 hits instead of, re-signing him to a 5-year deal. But unless you can attach that Ender Inciarte salary or get a huge bench piece back, I'll pass. I would rather see Bryce continue to develop because he's only gotten better as he seems to finally have found his groove. So that's what I think about the possibility of Bryce Wilson being traded. That's what I think about who's going to be that number 5 hole at the moment. If I had to guess on who's winning that race, it's got to be Bryce Wilson right now. Let's move into the next subject. We are still talking about Shane Green. And I'm just going to go ahead and I got to get ahead of it, guys. I really thought Shane Green was a must get early on in the offseason. And then time went on, and it went on some more and even more, and it just never happened. So now we're a little over a week away from opening day, and we have yet to see him, nor has any other team seen Shane Green pull up to their facility at spring training. So he's been very quiet on social media. Trust me, I've been monitoring it like a hawk about any deal or anything. So what is the deal with Shane Green when it comes to the Braves? It's all speculation. Whatever you read out there, whatever I say, it's all speculation. Don't let anybody fool you. Nobody really knows. But I think we can reasonably say that Shane Green is more than likely not returning to the Braves this season. They have a lot of right-handed arms, not so many lefties. It's just not a necessity necessarily in that regard. Plus, the rumored money issues that I would venture to say are more than likely, for the most part, pretty true. I'm surprised that he hasn't signed elsewhere, though. That's what raises my eyebrows, especially with that arms race in San Diego that picked up Melanson. So it is surprising, but I think his asking price, or maybe asking, years, how many years he wants, may be too high for some teams to be that confident in him. And I've done a lot of thinking on this. I think the Braves are likely out on him. He's not a priority. Double A confirmed it the other day when he said that the depth is the biggest concern. And you can take that as you want, but if anything, I expect possibly a trade for a bench bat, maybe a reliever, into the season, maybe a reliever. You see a trade, not involving Shane Green. That's not what I mean. Just a trade in general. I think that is more where the Braves are at the moment. But maybe, they'll get rid of that Ender Inciarte salary, or at least some of it, and be able to make some moves later on in the season. I just don't think Shane Green is the priority. I mean, we're talking about that bench battle, their depth is an issue right now. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the depth in just a second. But before we do, one more time, guys, go check out www.LlerandIGloves.com. Look at this, guys. You can get your name right here. You can get your name right there. You can get your team name. You can get logos made. I saw one with an American flag right here. And look, these gloves are high quality. Make no mistake about it. I'm holding it in my hand right now. They are high quality, and they're for a great price. Go check them out, www.LlerandIGloves.com. So let's talk about something else that might be of interest to you. Something to watch, really, during the season. Who's out of options in 2021? For those of you that are outsiders to this concept, what are options, right? I'm going to read you kind of the definition. I'm just going to read it to you because this will explain it a lot better than I'll ever be able to. Players on a 40-man roster are given 3 minor league options. An option allows that player to be sent to the minor leagues, optioned, without first being subjected to waivers. Players who are optioned to the minors are removed from a team's active 26-man roster, but remain on the 40-man. A player who is on the 40-man but does not open the season on the 26-man or the injured list must be optioned to the minor leagues. Once an option player has spent at least 20 days in the minors in a given season, he loses one of his options. Only one minor league option is used per season, regardless of how many times a player is optioned to and from the minors over the course of a given season. Out of options players must be designated for assignment, which removes them for the 40-man roster, and pass through outright waivers before being eligible to be sent to the minors. So what did I read all that for? I read that so you understand what I'm talking about in the next 5 minutes. There are 5 players that are out of options for the Braves this season. They are Tyler Matzik, Abraham Almani, Philip Irvin, Luke Jackson, and Grant Dayton. So what does all this mean? Let's go step by step here. Tyler Matzik is easily the biggest name on this list. I don't see this gaining any traction. I don't see this becoming a factor this year. I just don't. Last year, he had a 2.79 ERA out of the pen. He was 4-3 out of the pen, and he had a great postseason. And he had a really, the reason Tyler Matzik is so interesting, he had a really bad case of the yips a few years ago. But since he's returned, he's been excellent. And I really don't see anything that raises my eyebrows here. So moving on. Abraham Almani and Philip Irvin. I put these guys together because they're both in the same spot right now. They're both competing for that bench spot. They're fighting for a spot to be on the opening day roster. And make no mistake, spots are limited. So you got to think by numbers alone, they're both outfielders, and the competition going on at the moment for that bench spot, that at least one of these guys is not going to make it to opening day. Not to mention, like I said, they're both outfielders. So it's not even that they bring different skills in the field, offering the Braves more versatility. They're just, it's not, it wouldn't benefit the Braves in bringing both of these guys over. But right now, there is a clear victor in that race. It's Phillip Irvin. Before today, Almani had 24 at-bats with a 167 batting average. Irvin had 23 at-bats with a 261 batting average. So 261 versus 167 with virtually the same amount of at-bats. So why hasn't he been cut yet, Tyler? I know that's what you're all asking me. Why hasn't Albert Almonte been cut? Well, if you're out of options, the Braves are more than likely going to take every chance on you they can before they lose you to the waiver wire. I think that's what happened with Mike Foltynewicz last year. The Braves knew his situation. They at least knew his velocity was down before he was ever, pitching in a major league game. We saw him in summer camp. We saw him every time we saw him, we knew something was up, and the Braves did too, make no mistake about it. But they wanted him to have every chance because he had too much value to just let loose, right? And I think that's what and it's not quite the same in spring training for these guys, but again, if you're out of options, they're going to take every chance on you they can. But again, if I had to pick one, it's Phillip Irvin at the moment. Luke Jackson is out of options. Oh, Luke Jackson. I know all of you guys are going to comment about this one. That's right. He's out of options. There's more to it than that, but he is out of options. Make no mistake. But if you remember, he signed a $2 million deal this past offseason. So far in spring, which is very limited, he's been decent. A 3.18 ERA in 5 2/3 innings. We all know that Luke can be really good at times. He can be okay at times, and he can be extremely worrisome at times. I think the Braves are going to give him every chance they can as well because, one, he's out of options, and two, they're paying him $2 million if he makes the roster. So they may cut him before then if they view that he's not worth it. Maybe they don't pay. They must see something in him. I know a lot of fans criticize Luke Jackson. They criticize the Braves for keeping this guy around. But keep in mind, they also saw something in an upcoming struggling Bryce Wilson. So don't jump on him quite yet. Hopefully, he'll be a little bit more consistent this year if he makes the roster and avoid hitting the waiver wire. And you're probably wondering, as I was, why Luke hasn't had more games in spring training. You got to realize the Braves have a ton of bullpen options, especially right-handers. So I just wonder, what will Luke Jackson be this year? Ultimately, it'll come up. Hopefully, we'll figure it out before opening day what he's going to be, what his role is going to look like. Grant Dayton is the final one. Speaking of bullpen options, Grant Dayton, who has been a bit up and down over the years, in 4 innings pitched so far in spring training, he's got a 6.75 ERA, just for example here. Super small sample size, which leads to some questions. A lot of folks are ready to pull the plug, saying he could get left off the roster. I've seen that out there with Braves media. I've seen kind of predictions out there. That's certainly a possibility. I think that's not unwarranted based on the time given to him more than the actual results, because with a small sample size like that, I really question how much I take that into account. I'm more paying attention to how much time he's being given, as I am with Luke Jackson. Grant Dayton only having 4 innings when he's one of the guys who we know is a bit of a worry makes me wonder if he's going to make it to the opening day roster. But the one thing about him, though, we've been talking about how many right-handers the Braves have. He's a lefty, and I think, ultimately the Braves are a little bit limited when it comes to left-handed pitching, and it'll be interesting to see if that keeps him around. I think that could happen. I'm not saying it will. I don't know. But I think that is a reason why he's still at spring training, because we all know he struggled last year. We all know in spring training, obviously, he wasn't doing very well, and he's not even getting the attention. So I think it could be time for Grant Dayton to go. I see a comment right there. Matzik, Smith, Mentor, and maybe Nuke. We don't need Grant Dayton. Yeah, I agree to some degree, but the Braves are also a little limited with lefties. It's always good to have a good mix, and they are very outweighed on the right-handed side. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think, if I had to pick right now, I would probably vote that he doesn't make it. But who am I to tell him that? So with that, we're going to move into some of the comments, and then we are probably going to move into autograph of the day after that. We're going to see what we got here in the chat. The Braves have enough offense to let Pache learn to hit in the show. I agree. I just don't think that's going to last necessarily. Not saying the Braves offense is going to peter off. I think they could still develop into what they were last year, this year. But next year, you're losing d'Arnaud more than likely. You got to re-sign Freeman. You got to re-sign Dansby. You got to re-sign Ender. I think just in case, it'd probably be a good thing to let him learn in the show. I completely agree with you there. Biggest concern is Wright. His stuff looks average at best. Yeah, we talked about him a little bit tonight. He has like a 4.09 ERA compared to Bryce Wilson's 1.98. I think you got to give the edge to Bryce Wilson there. I think you got to give him the start, but we'll see. I think Wright, I think Wright has all the potential in the world to turn it around long-term in his career. I just don't know if he's ready quite yet to be a starter. Let me see. Jake Lamb will become a problem for the Braves. He cannot make contact for every 4 at-bats. He gets 3 strikeouts. They can afford having Inciarte, Camargo, and Lamb. Oh, they cannot afford to have Inciarte, Camargo, and Lamb. He looks terrible. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. Lamb has not looked very good in spring training. I do think that they're giving him every chance possible to turn it around because he was once an all-star. They seem to think he has a chance to turn it around, and they're going to give him every chance. But right now, you look at a guy like Jason Kipnis who's doing relatively okay. I'm not going to say he's doing great, but he's doing okay, doing good enough to, I think, have a chance at the bench spot. I don't think Jake Lamb is in the same category. He's really not doing well, and we'll see what happens. But I think that it is certainly a question at the moment. Justin Goldberg asks, hey, Tyler, if you were the GM, where would you put each of these players in the minors or in the bullpen? Huascar Inoa, bullpen. Tuki Toussaint, depends. It just depends with Tuki. We've seen so many versions of Tuki. We've seen really good. We've seen, okay, he made it through it okay, and then we've seen terrible. So it depends with Tuki. I need to see what he's got, and right now I just haven't quite seen enough of him to make a decision there. Bryce Wilson's a definite bullpen. Kyle Wright, I still think could be bullpen, but I think he's not late inning setup bullpen. I think Bryce Wilson could be. I think Kyle Wright's more of a fill-in Luke Jackson-esque type where he can come in and pitch multiple innings out of the pen, but not in a super stressful situation. That's where I'm at with that. But good question. Very good question. I don't like being called the GM, though, because I'm not the GM. I don't get paid enough to be the GM. Ari Adrianza will make it, no doubt. I don't know about no doubt, but he certainly is making it hard to cut. Like I said, he's really making it difficult for them to make a decision. So it'll be interesting. We're finally wearing down on spring training. You expect to see some cuts in the next week, right? At some point, they got to make a decision. So I expect by the end of this week to see some kind of decision made on a lot of these guys. And when that happens, we'll, of course, update you here as quick as I can. But it'll be interesting to see. I think Adrianza has done a lot to prove himself to be worth picking up. And this is a guy, keep in mind, Adrianza is a guy, when the Braves picked him up, a lot of people, one, didn't know who he was, and two, were like, why? They didn't really understand it. Why not sign Duvall? Remember that conversation? I brought that conversation to you. But I think Adrianza is trying to prove himself. And if he's that level of confident, he's doing better than a lot of guys we know and love. So it'll be interesting to see. Look, I think you have to reward good at bats. You have to reward good stats, and you have to reward good work ethic. And this guy has all 3 of those. So it'll be interesting to see. Let me see. Lamb won't make it. One of either Pablo Sandoval or Kipnis will. Contreras will win the backup catcher job. I don't know. I agree with you on the Pablo Kipnis thing, but Contreras, here's the thing. I am a huge fan of Williams Contreras, but it's looking like they might give the edge to Alex Jackson. I have not counted him out quite yet because Alex Jackson, one, did you see the bomb he hit the other day? It was over the berm in left field. It was a smoker. So his bat's not terrible necessarily. He might need some figuring out, but it's not terrible. And behind the plate, he's suitable. I also think that I think they have a little bit more confidence in Williams Contreras, but he's also a little bit younger. They may want to hold out on him while they can and get another year of control while they have d'Arnaud. So we'll see. I don't know. I think it's either way. I think their Braves are going to be fine. And look, halfway through the season, 2 weeks into the season, 3 weeks into the season, it may be that Alex Jackson just isn't doing enough, especially with his bat. We'll see. But Williams Contreras may get the call at that point. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But not a bad take on that. I am a huge Contreras fan. You guys know that. I've watched this guy for a long time, and the genetics are there. The performance is there, but again, we're going to have to wait and see. Autograph of the day. Yeah, it's coming up, guys. I got a couple autographed items myself. Oh, you're going to have to send those in to me. Most starting pitchers have looked great so far. Yeah, Fried's looked good. Anderson looked really good. He had like 9 strikeouts the other day. The only one I really want to see is Soroka now. There's a lot of rumors out there about whether or not he's going to be back for opening day, and I don't know how much I believe in any of that, but we'll see. I'm more along the lines of I need to see it before I believe it. But we'll see. Without a healthy Soroka, what's your 1 to 5 look like? Again, depends on left-handed, right-handed, but just top to bottom in terms of quality. Obviously, without Soroka, I think it goes Fried. Well, yeah, Fried, Morton, Anderson, Smiley, Wilson at the moment. That's where I'm at. Kyle Wright, maybe if he does really well these next week or so, but Bryce Wilson's the guy he's made it a point. He's been very open about, I want this more than anything. We heard that quote. We've heard all that. But that's where I'm at. I think that's the real question. We already know who's going to be in the starting rotation, in the sense of we know Fried's going to be there. We know Anderson's going to be there. We know, we know who's going to be there, right? Except for that 5th hole, and that's going to be Bryce Wilson, ultimately until Soroka comes back. So it'll be interesting. Bryce Wilson is a pit bull just waiting to be unleashed. I think that's a very good way to describe it. When he's on the mound and he's confident, I have no concern. I remember last year with the Dodgers beforehand, I was a little worried about what it was going to look like. Was it going to be another Game 3 where Kyle Wright, gave up 12 runs? Patrick's over there. I got a buddy in studio. I mentioned that earlier. Patrick was with me. We were at Game 3 in Texas. It was a tough thing to be at. Very tough. Like 10 runs in the first inning. It was hard. So with that said, with Bryce Wilson, I was worried it was going to be another instance of that, and then it wasn't. He pitched dominantly, and if he can be that, I want him in the starting rotation if Soroka's not there. Maybe over certain other people if he's that good, but we'll see. I don't know if I'm ready to do it yet, but that gives me confidence, not for 2021, for 2022. That's what it gives me confidence for. Whoever doesn't go in the 5 hole will be in the pen at least to start the season. I think both of those guys wind up in the pen when Soroka gets back, Bryce Wilson and Kyle Wright. But yeah, I agree. One of them will be in the pen for sure. Would you support the Braves giving up Austin Riley? Probably not. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, probably not. A good pitching prospect other than Ian Anderson and a 1st-round draft pick for Jose Ramirez. I remember this conversation early on in the offseason, and I disagreed with it. It was looking like the Braves actually might do this, but I was like, that's just a lot. And don't get me wrong, Jose Ramirez is a great player, but I think Austin Riley has all the potential to be a great player. Not to mention a huge pitching prospect. You mean like Kyle Muller, another guy that can be in the starting rotation next year, a year after? It's just a lot. If it's Austin Riley straight up, maybe, but that's a lot. That's a lot of value there, a lot of potential upside, for a guy who's established. I'll give him credit. But also a 1st-round draft pick, can't be me, man. It just can't be me. Again, you also got to think who the Braves are. The Braves want to be a long-term team. They don't want to be down and out after 3 or 4 years of success. They want as many chances at the World Series as possible, and I don't think giving up a 1st-round draft pick is their MO. But not a bad question. I'm not coming at you, but I just don't agree. Mad Bam, Tyler, is it me or does it seem Kyle Wright should start the season in the minors? I think Wilson has taken a spot in the rotation of both Webb and Tukey take the last bullpen spots. Webb for sure. Tukey has looked pretty good, but I need to see it for longer. Ultimately it's going to be what the Braves are seeing with him in their private bullpen sessions and their workouts, things like that. There's a lot of things that we don't get to see, not to mention they're not on TV every day. Their stats show a little bit, but spring training's odd. And what I mean by that is spring training, sometimes you're facing the first 3 batters, sometimes you're facing, the minor leaguers at our version of, Philip Irvin, Guillermo Heredia, and Travis Demeritte. It's, whether you're facing Freddie Freeman versus those guys is a very different thing. And it's hard for me to really value one guy over the other in such a small sample size. So again, long term, I don't know. What I can tell you is I think Bryce Wilson has earned that spot at the moment. But things can change. Kyle Wright can find something that works for him and be right back. I think Kyle Wright's got plenty of talent. Don't be sold out on Kyle Wright just yet. I do think he could turn it around. Remember, Tom Glavine had a postseason experience very similar to what Kyle Wright did in like 92. And then he was World Series MVP in 95. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't know. I just think it's too early to tell. But I think Wilson certainly has taken his spot in the rotation for now. In terms of Webb and Tukey, maybe. Webb for sure, because Webb was so dominant last year when he came back. Tukey, possibly. I need to see consistency out of Tukey more than anything. Bryce should have pitched in Game 7, shaking my head. Game 7 was a tough one. That was a tough one. I don't necessarily agree with you, but it was definitely a tough one. I think if Soroka had been there, we would have been in a World Series last year, but that's beside the point. If Wright and Bryce straighten out, our future rotation will be scary. Mike, Max, Ian, Bryce, Kyle. Yeah, keep in mind, this organization is built on pitching. It is. I know last year didn't look like it, but it is. So, yeah, I think we'll see. We will see. Let me see. I'm going to miss Shane. We need more setup mid relievers. One more setup middle reliever. I don't disagree, but I don't think Shane's that guy. I think he must be asking for too much. The Braves are in the $1 million ballpark, it seems. So we'll see. I think they're probably not near the same ballpark, similar to what Donaldson was a few years ago, where he just said the Braves were nowhere near what I was looking for. So we'll see. Madman might have heard something I didn't know. I heard Newcomb was pitching at 100+ miles per hour in a game this spring. Is this true? Could he make the team? I never heard of him throwing that hard. If he's throwing 100 miles an hour, I don't see why he couldn't make the team. I think Newcomb has been a guy that has struggled, obviously, in recent years, but he's a guy that I've always thought could immediately just turn it back around, figure it out, and move forward. But if he's throwing 100 miles an hour, that's obviously an improvement. So we'll see. When they run out of options, they have to clear and pass waivers to be DFA'd, hence why we did that with Gohara and Preston. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Let me move forward. Sorry, I got a little lost there. Following the divisional question, how long would it take the Braves to clinch? Knock on wood. I don't know. The National League East, I think, is the one that's confusing all the experts, because the expert calculations that are all out there predicted the Mets to win it. Obviously, I don't think we all think that. I think even the experts are scratching their heads on that. Why could that even be? Why could that even be thought of, right? But the Braves, I think, are the favorite. In reality, are the favorite to win this year. But I don't know how long it would take. That's such a odd thing to have to pick. I think maybe they're a team that could win 100 games, and they're a team that could just barely clinch. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what the National League East would look like to be able to predict that, unfortunately. Can't wait for Soroka to come back, but I think they should take it slow. I agree. That's why I don't really buy into a lot of this stuff talking about Soroka's going to be back by opening day. But we'll see. But I agree with you. What's your content schedule look like going into another 162-game season? Fill us in. Not yet. I'll let you know. Got some things I got to figure out on the work side of things before I can really commit to a schedule. It'll probably look something like what it is now, Monday, Thursday, 8 p.m. Let me see. You can't trade draft picks, LOL. Yeah, good point. Tyler, whatever happened to Travis Snyder? I read the Braves signed him at the beginning of the spring, but I haven't heard or seen him in a lineup. He used to be a good player. I haven't heard anything on him either. I don't see anything. All right. We're going to wrap it up there, guys. We're going to move into autograph of the day. Got a pretty good one tonight. I looked on the shelf and was like, all right, is there an interesting one I can do that? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give him something pretty good tonight. Patrick, I would say this one's pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's obviously a bat. I wish I could show you the whole thing, but I can't. It's a baseball bat, and it's signed by none other than a two-sport athlete, for sure, the best two-sport athlete of all time, and I would probably say one of my favorite athletes of all time, none other than Bo Jackson. It's one of my favorite pieces. I got it for a steal a few years ago, and I'll tell you a story about Bo Jackson real quick. I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually, for a few years, I was on the sidelines at college football games shooting highlights. And I was at Auburn one night, as you can see back there. I was at Auburn one night, and the same night I actually met Josh Donaldson. I stood next to Bo Jackson for 10, 15 minutes, and I didn't talk to him. I was too scared. This is like the one guy that made me just, I was scared to be next to him a little bit, but Bo was, he was very into the game as well, so I didn't want to interrupt him. As media, we're not really supposed to do that. I did talk to Donaldson, though. I couldn't resist that one. But Bo stood next to me for 10 or 15 minutes, and just seeing him in his element, that focused on a game that he wasn't even playing in, it was pretty cool. But, I got to somewhat meet him, I guess, but it was pretty cool to stand right next to him. I did interview Pat Dye. He's back there on that helmet, but he talked a little bit about Bo with me. But Bo, obviously, this piece is really cool. One more time, I'm gonna let you guys see it, and we're probably gonna get out of here. That's Bo. Bo knows. But with that, we are going to get out of here. One more time, guys. Go check out Llerandi Gloves. LlerandIGloves.com. Best selection, best price for a baseball glove company. Look at this thing. It's beautiful. So go check it out there. Of course, as always, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, and make sure you're up to date with everything going on with the Atlanta Braves. So with that, guys, we're going to hop out of here. Only, 12 days away, not even from like opening day, maybe like 11. I don't know exactly, but we're coming up soon. But make sure you tune in and be ready for a 162 game season with your Atlanta Braves. Thanks, guys.